Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a wrap up for the month of February, mostly because it's been a while since I've done a wrap up. I think my last one was November. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you about what I read in February, and then I think I'm going to end with a little bit of a TBR for March, just potentially. I hate TBRs, but I think I actually know some things that I really want to read. So let's get started. So the first book I read this month, I actually started at the very end of January, and it took me about a week to finish because it was mega long, but I read Outlander by Gabaldon, and this was a buddy read with my friend Jenessa over at Thoughts from Nowhere, and she just finished, I think today, which is pretty exciting. But anyways, I loved this book. I just loved it. It took me a little while to get into it. The beginning is a little bit slow just because I sort of knew what it was getting to and I wanted to get there, but it's about a woman who's a nurse in World War II, and she ends up going back in time by accident into the 1700s in the Scottish Highlands, and it sounds like something that could be really bad and poorly done, but the writing is so good, the story is so interesting, there's so much going on with the plot, the romance is really lovely, and I just really love this. The second book I read is not something that I have because it was a library book, but it's I Was Here by Gayle Forman. It's Gayle Forman's newest book. I love Gayle Forman's writing. Her books are some of my favorite books, and I just love them. I had really high expectations for I Was Here, and I just didn't like it. It's about a girl whose best friend commits suicide, and it's sort of her journey figuring out why she committed suicide and what she could have done to prevent it, if anything. So it was an interesting sort of story. I just didn't care for some of the relationships that happened, and I didn't care terribly for many of the characters. I just didn't love it. But if you like Gayle Forman, I would encourage you to check it out. If you haven't read any Gayle Forman, definitely read her other things. Read If I Stay, read Just One Day, because those are excellent. I just didn't care for I Was Here. The next book I read was also a library book, but I still have it, and it's We Should Hang Out Sometime by Josh Sundquist. I did a review of this, which I will link to, and you can watch that. But this is a book about Josh and his misadventures in romance. It was really lovely. It was a really quick read, and it's a good nonfiction book, I think, for people who maybe don't read a lot of nonfiction, because it's really light and really fun, and yeah, I recommend it. The next book I read is something I actually started reading like a year ago, and the bookmark was in the middle, and it's just been on my shelf for some reason, but I just decided to pick it up and finish it, and the book is Jesus Is by Judah Smith. It's a very basic introduction to the person of Jesus, and I think something on the back says this is a book for new believers, lifelong followers, and for the merely curious. So if you are a Christian and you're interested in reading about things that have to do with your faith, I would recommend this. If you're not a Christian and you're curious about the things we believe, this is also a really good book to read. It's very contemporary language, very accessibly written. Judah Smith is very humorous, and this is just an excellent book for anyone interested in Christian things. The next book I picked up is a graphic novel. It's something that I've heard people talking about on BookTube, and as a rule, I don't really like graphic novels. I read the first Amulet book and I didn't love it. I read the first Saga book and I just didn't love it, and I figured it was just something wrong with me, like what's wrong with Kara? She doesn't like graphic novels. But the one I picked up was In Real Life by Cory Doctorow and Wang. I just thought this story was super interesting, and I don't really even want to tell you what it's about because I didn't really know what it was about, except for I figured it had something to do with gaming, because on the cover there's a girl on a computer and a girl who looks like a sort of avatar from, you know, World of Warcraft or something like that. But the narrative of this was very complex. The art style was just something that I really liked. I read this twice in a row in one day. Obviously, it doesn't take very long to read a graphic novel, but if you like graphic novels, I'd see no reason why you wouldn't love this. And if you don't like graphic novels, I would still check it out because I enjoyed this much more than many of the graphic novels that I've tried before, and it was just a really interesting, lovely, beautiful story. And the last book I read this month was on my Kindle, so I'm not going to hold it up. It was a reread for me, and it was Amy and Roger's Epic Detour by Matson. It's a book about a girl who goes through a traumatic event, and then she's forced to travel cross country to move to a new place, and she goes with this guy who she doesn't really know. He's like a family friend, and it's just their journey across America. They stop several places, they meet a lot of people. I'm a huge sucker for road trip books, so I was gonna love this no matter what probably, but I read it when I was, I think, a senior in high school, and I enjoyed it just as much this time around. I think it's just a really interesting story. Morgan Matson is great at writing sort of contemporary young adult romances that aren't revolved around the romantic relationship. There's a lot of stuff about grief and loss and healing, and yeah, so if you haven't read it, you should, and if you have, read it again, because that's what I did. That's what I read in February. What I'm going to read in March. First of all, I'm currently reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is something a lot of people have read. It's a classic. I'm about halfway done with it, and I'm really, really liking it. I picked this up for 75 cents at a thrift store, and I read the first couple pages. I wasn't planning on picking it up to read right now, but I read a few pages and I was like, yep, I really like this writing, so I'm gonna read the whole thing. The next two books are library books, so the only reason they're on a TBR is because they're gonna be due back, and if I don't read them now, I will have to get them later because I can't renew these. They're too popular, too many people want to read them. And the first one is The Martian by Andy Weir. I checked this out several months ago and I didn't get to it. My dad actually read it instead of me while I had it checked out. And I love this cover, first of all, and the story sounds really interesting, and I've only heard good things about it. It's about a guy who's on Mars, and he's kind of stuck there, and he's trying to figure out how to not die. And the next book I have I'm really, really excited about. I've heard a ton of great buzz, and it is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I'm not entirely sure what it's about, except for there's a couple different Londons, and there's some magic going on, but I really, really, really am excited to read this because I loved Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and I enjoyed the archived also, but I really loved Vicious, so I'm hoping this goes more towards the Vicious side of things. Really pumped about this, definitely looking forward to digging in. And yeah, I hate committing to books, but I think I can commit to 2 books plus one I'm already reading. Hopefully it's gonna go okay. If you guys have read any of these, let me know in the comments. Please be my friend on Goodreads because I love that, and I will see you guys later with something else. Bye!